This is the second part of the Angular 2 introduction, and we will continue talking about the nice features of this second version of Angular. So, as we mentioned before, Angular is about the speed. I was talking maybe 10 minutes about the speed of Angular 2, but also they want to simplify our code. So in Angular 1, you had to learn about directive, how many directive do you know, like ngClick, ngIf, ngShow, and many more. So the learning curve was pretty high, right? In Angular 2, they want to simplify this, and if you know standard HTML, then you will know everything to do the data binding. So with the template, as you can see here, you can bind properties, changes, just using the input value property, and with this syntax of the square brackets, we are saying, okay, now this value we want to bind to it. Also for events, we can use the native events from JavaScript, like click, mouse over, and many more, directly using the parentheses. If we want to do double data binding, they provide a shortcut of joining the two previous, like properties and events, and it's using what they define, like the banana in the box, that is square brackets, then the parentheses, and then the model. So this is everything that you need to learn in Angular 2 for binding, and you don't have to remember which are the directive, because this works with any standard valid property attribute from HTML, and also events from HTML. So there is less to learn. That's why they are saying that it's going to be much more simpler. Also, with the simplicity, in Angular 1, you had to learn how to work with a controller, what is a controller, how to work with a directive, and so on. In Angular 2, we will be focused mostly in components. So a component, it's the aggregation of a controller and a directive. So you don't need anymore to think about, oh, this is a controller, oh, this is a directive. A component is just something that holds the business logic, holds a template, and then probably it will talk with services. Okay. Continue with the simplicity. In Angular 1, we have the famous scope variable and the root scope, and everybody can watch everybody. This breaks the separation of concerns. Then it has a problem of the digest cycle, and in the end, we can agree that it's a little bit spaghetti code. It was the option provided in Angular 1, and we have been dealing with this for a long time. But in Angular 2, they want to simplify this, and the direction of the data is unidirectional. So if you want to bind a change, it goes in a direction. If you want to set a value, it goes in another direction. This is faster, easy to debug, and works great with reactive programming, as we will see later in this masterclass. Angular 2 provides several languages that you can use for writing the code. So if you don't want to learn anything right now, you can start writing Angular 2 with ES5. This is a normal JavaScript that we write in the browsers. We don't need to compile anything, and probably if you are thinking about Angular 2, your team knows JavaScript, right? So this is an option, simple, if you don't want any compilation at all. This is a matrix to choose which is a proper language for you and in your team. Then if we come to compiling, we can use ES6. There is a dedicated section in this masterclass about ES6. This is a new version of JavaScript, and as all browsers are not supporting ES6 right now, we need to compile this in order to generate valid JavaScript in the browsers. ES6 support classes, modules, promises, fat arrows, and many more cool features. So definitely in the future, all JavaScript coders will be writing applications in ES6. Then we have TypeScript. TypeScript offers a superset on top of ES6, and they offer data types. This is something that won't be available in ES6, so you can define a variable that is a string. It will remain as a string forever. Number, then if you assign a number, you cannot assign a string to this variable because it will have a compile error. It has plenty of IDE support. Microsoft is working proactively to give many tools, and also it works nicely and seamlessly with refactoring tools. Angular team actually is writing Angular in TypeScript, so I think we will see many more TypeScript developers in the near future. And the final option that Angular 2 provides to us to write the applications is with Dart. This is not JavaScript. It's easy for Java developers to write applications. So these are the 4 possibilities for writing Angular 2, and take a look and you could decide depending on the knowledge of your team and the direction that you want to decide between compile, compilation, or the type of syntax, tooling, and so on. Talking about tooling, Angular 2 is going to offer a command line interface where we can do all the scaffolding of Angular 2, the dependencies, all the libraries, just with a command line. This is an early stage. They said that it's in alpha in the documentation, and probably we won't see this very soon, but it looks promising. You can take a look on more videos in YouTube about it from Angular conference. I would like to show you the website so you see how it looks. This is the Angular command line interface. Clearly they're saying there is a lot of work to do yet. Ideally you will be able to create components, directive, pipes, and services directly from the console, from the terminal, with something like this: generate a route hero. They are still working on this, so don't try it for production environment at all. The idea with this Angular command line interface is that you can create a project with something like this: npm install, then you install the command line interface, you create a folder, then you run ng-serve, and it will run nice and smoothly. If you want to start creating services, pipes, or do a build, you can do it from the command line, from the ng command line, and this will help the process of writing applications, deploying, going to production, and so on. What about cross-platform? This is something that I guess that it took for surprise to the team, to the Angular team, when they developed Angular 1 and they were thinking about web. So Angular 1 is about the web, but suddenly many companies and developers start writing mobile applications with Angular 1. So finally the Angular 2 team decide, okay, let's do Angular 2 multi-platform. So you can run it in the browser, you can run it on mobile, or even in the server. So what is doing Angular 2 about mobile? First of all, they are providing with a library that is Material Design. So this is the design for mobile phones and tablet. They are providing with Angular Universal. I mentioned this briefly in the first intro video, and it's about rendering Angular in the server. And then we have web workers for putting Angular in another thread, and this will help a lot in mobile environments. Then we have mobile partners that are giving support to Angular 2 for them to use it. This is a case of Ionic, OnSend UI from Sencha, NativeScript, and React. All of these are partners for mobile web and for Angular 2. In case you don't know, Ionic is a platform for writing mobile applications using PhoneGap and Angular on top. So you can write nice interfaces like this with Angular code. Definitely you should take a look on Ionic. There are many developers working on it. I include myself and my team write code in Ionic, and it's awesome. Yeah, and the next point, and I have been giving conference to people for training Angular 2, and this is a typical question that comes to the table at some point. What about the upgrade from Angular 1 to Angular 2? Yes, that's the panorama. Angular 1, we could say that is a tiny space tank, and then we are trying to jump to Angular 2 that is a monster, right? It's super big, so it's a fish in a big tank. It will take time, the migration, but there are several things that you can start doing for migrating from Angular 1 to Angular 2. So when people ask me about this, how do I upgrade to Angular 2? The first thing that I will suggest is you should focus on writing good Angular 1 code. Okay. In case you don't know, John Papa is one of the evangelists for Google, for many companies, and he wrote a styling coding guide for Angular 1. It is like the Bible. He explained how you should properly write Angular 1, and definitely you should take a look on this. Try to refactor your code as close as possible to the Angular 1 John Papa guide. This is the first step that I would suggest to anybody that wants to migrate your code from NG1 to NG2. The second step that I will suggest is that start experimenting with TypeScript. Definitely this will help you to write Angular 2 applications and to refactor super fast Angular 1. The next step to do is to choose between these two options that Angular team is suggesting, and one of them is you can work with Angular 1 and Angular 2 at the same time, so you need both libraries installed in your project, and you keep your legacy code working with Angular 1 and expose this to Angular 2 with a library, with the NG upgrade. And with this, they will know how to talk with each other. It's like these are two frameworks that you are using in the same application, and they have a common interface to talk between them. What's the purpose of this? Well, at some point, maybe 6 months ahead, your team is prepared, Angular 2 is released in the final version, and then you can start removing all legacy components from Angular 1 and bring it to Angular 2 world. The second option is you start refactoring everything one by one. This is what we have been doing, for example, in my team, service by service, component by component, all of them, trying to migrate them to TypeScript, first step, and then we can use decorators to make our Angular 1 application to look like Angular 2. So once we are ready, then we can just replay the Angular 1 library for Angular 2 and then continue working as nothing happens. So these are two strategies that you can take a look, and definitely it's not going to be easy. I'm not going to lie to you. The migration can take time, and it really depends on how organized you have your code right now. What's the status of Angular 2 at this day? They have gone through the phase of alpha. It was last year. They were coding, and there was a lot of break changes, and they were experimenting with the API to make it nice and clean. Currently, we are in beta. They are heavily working the documentation, so there is not so many documentation, and probably you have to take a look on the source code. That's what I have been doing to create all these video tutorials, because to be honest, there is not so much on the web, and this is one of the primary reasons why I created this video tutorial, so you can have access to Angular 2 as fast as possible. But Angular 2 team also is working on creating a good documentation. Yeah, and hopefully they will release Angular 2 this year. I cross my fingers, and yeah, from there probably they will start changing and adding more stuff to the huge framework that is Angular 2. This is the URL, angular.io, with the documentation. You can take a look on it. And this masterclass goes beyond this with many exercises that you can follow with me to learn every part of Angular 2. Finally, before starting coding and with the Angular 2 videos and every part of the framework, I would like to briefly mention about Ionic 2. So in case you don't know Ionic, I mentioned this before, but it's a framework for writing mobile applications with Angular and PhoneGap. That's it. And it works super nice. We can see here that Ionic has been used by 1.2 million applications since 2015. That's a lot. We are talking about this is a main competitor to iOS and Android native coding. So if you want to start writing mobile applications and you don't want to go through the learning curve of Objective-C, Android, Swift, and so on, you can definitely install Ionic, and then you just code Angular and you have mobile applications. That's it. It works, it's nice, and I'm going to create a new video for Ionic after finishing with these Angular 2 videos, because I really love this framework and I'm excited if you start using it. I think you will love it as much as me. So yeah, then the question from many managers is, yeah, but if you have native coding, HTML in mobile applications is a little bit crappy. I have to say that many applications featured by Google and Apple in their stores are from Ionic, and you won't realize that they are not written in native code. So definitely the result that you can get with Ionic is super good quality. If you already know Angular, you already know how to write mobile applications. And finally, it's worthy to mention that Ionic is used by Fortune 50 startups and also medium players, big player, freelance. So everybody is using Ionic. You should do it too at these days. If you already know Ionic, you will be wondering, okay, what's the impact of Angular 2 in Ionic 2? So as we mentioned, Angular 2 is focused on speeds, and this will improve the render and layout performance in Ionic 2. Definitely this will make Ionic very close to native code. Angular 2 with the use of web workers will make the applications in Ionic much more responsive. Also, we could focus on components and the UI, and it will offer a low barrier entry because you can write the applications in ES6 or TypeScript. Ionic 2 new features. This is just a preview for the next video tutorial that I will release after Angular 2. Ionic 2 will offer a new navigation system with modals, parallel navigations, and many more. It will support material design. It will have new animations, scrolling, virtual scrolling, and so on. It will have a powerful theming system. This is something that is not available in Angular in Ionic 1, and depending on your platform, iOS or Android, the code will have a different theme. You code once, deploy two, and then you have different UX. And you will have new ways to write components and templates. So this is ionic.io. This is a version 2 of Ionic. If you already know Ionic, if you already know Angular, you definitely should take a look on Ionic 2. With this, we finish with the introduction of Angular 2, and hopefully you see all these videos, get all the knowledge for working with Angular 2, and be ready for the final release of this great framework.